for our next panel, we're going to be talking to Kimberly Seals Allers. Kimberly is an award-winning journalist, 5-time author, international speaker, strategist, and advocate for maternal and infant health. She is the founder of Irth, I-R-T-H, which is a Yelp-like review and rating app for Black women and birthing people from marginalized groups to leave and find reviews of maternity and infant care physicians, birthing hospitals, and many other things as a tool to address bias and racism in care. This app is now in beta testing, and Kimberly has raised, I believe it's over $500,000 in the last year. So it's like terribly impressive, as well as being a sad commentary on the changes that we really still need to make to systemic inequality in our healthcare systems. Kimberly had released her 5th book in January 2017. It was titled The Big Letdown: How Medicine, Big Business, and Feminism Undermine Breastfeeding. Kimberly is a divorced mother of 2. She lives in Queens, New York, and I am so excited to hear what she has to say. So Kimberly will be joining the stage with our own amazing Mariella Marie. Mariella, if you've attended any of our past chats, you will know Mariella is an amazingly dynamic and just really unique personality, and brings a very brings this amazing warm energy to everything she touches. I'm so excited to see her and hear her interact with Kimberly today. So I'm gonna drop off and let Mariella and Kimberly take the stage. Take it away, ladies.
All right. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Meg. Thank you, Power to Fly, for facilitating this conversation. And Kimberly, thank you for gracing us with your presence. I want you just to share all the beautiful things you've been up to. And since we've got about 30 minutes, I want you to dive as deep as you can, but also just to get it out of the way, how can folks connect with you when we finish this conversation so they can learn more and support the work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Well, they can certainly learn more about the Irth App by following us on Instagram at the Irth App, IRTHAPP, earthapp.com. And you can follow me at IAMK Seals Allers. And then you can go to KimberlySealsAllers.com to learn more about my work more broadly. And also check out the birthright.podcast.com, where we talk about positive Black birth stories, something that we need to discuss more about.
Absolutely. So let's learn a little bit more about your career journey. So I know that I'm not the only one that's curious to know about this pivot that you took, from being a journalist to now being a maternal and infant health advocate. Can you just tell us a little bit about that career pivot?
Yeah, so you're right. I was a journalist having a wonderful career in journalism. I was a writer at Fortune magazine. I covered Wall Street from the New York Post. Rupert Murdoch sent me to London to work for the Times. I was a senior editor at Essence and did not think at all about having children. I was living my best life in all of my dreams. But I did become pregnant. And, for me, everything shifted. That was really a turning point, not just around what mattered to me, but also my own personal experience during my pregnancy, which is part of the inspiration that led me to create Irth. And so I think, because I am a journalist at heart and I'm a storyteller, I probably over-researched myself, while I was pregnant, and the things that I was learning about Black women and our birth outcomes and pregnancy and childbirth, mortality, all the things were terrifying, just terrifying. And for me, as a journalist, the answers were just simply not acceptable. I didn't find the answers that I felt the issue deserved at that time. There was a small conversation, a very nascent conversation about the role of racism and how it impacts our bodies and our birth and breastfeeding outcomes. So I was really just intrigued. And so my very first book came out back in 2005, and it was a pregnancy guidebook. The Mocha Manual to a Fabulous Pregnancy was the first of its kind pregnancy guidebook for Black women to really look at pregnancy and childbirth through a sociocultural lens, right? I'm not a doctor, but what are the things going on in Black women's lives that may be impacting their birth outcomes, from stress, from our jobs to our finances, our role in our communities, just all the things. And so that book really kind of began my journey into looking at this issue from a different perspective, but also asking questions that I think other people weren't asking, and trying to create solutions for that. And so, I left my job at Essence, to kind of pursue this full time and to build a brand and products that were centered on Black motherhood. My first brand was a website that was a pregnancy lifestyle information content website for Black parents, and that grew. And now we're thinking about now we're doing podcasts and apps, and so this has been my passion, which I'm excited to I was able to pivot to, and has turned into a life with real purpose. So I'm excited to be on this journey.
Well, I'm so happy that you were able to connect your journey with your purpose and share all of these things that you're sharing with us. I personally want to say thank you. And this is opening a door for me. I'm going through something personally right now that I need this book right now. So thank you for putting the work, the research, and going through all of what it takes, to be published as a Black woman in the sphere. So thank you. I would like to jump into some questions now to just get us starting to talk about this topic, educating ourselves so that we can just be more aware and use the resources that you have to share with us. So one of the primary causes for high mortality rates among pregnant Black women is the lack of public accountability from healthcare institutions. Can you tell us your approach to handling this issue and how Irth ensures that these institutions are being held accountable?
Yes, this is the name of the game right now. So first of all, just to be clear for everyone watching, Irth is a Yelp-like review and rating platform for Black and brown women and birthing people to find and leave reviews of their OBGYNs, birthing hospitals, and pediatricians up to baby's first year. So we serve this dual role. One, we're putting our experiences publicly all in one place, right, where our collective stories have power. And in that, we are bringing transparency and accountability to this medical system, because let me tell you, I had my own negative experience and I was dismissed. Look at what happened to Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all times. Constantly in my work on the ground for the past 8 years, it was like all of these stories from every city that I was in and all of these people being dismissed. And I'm like, we need to put all these stories in one place, right? And we need to use our collective power and wield our consumer power in saying, for those of us who can, one, we are not going to use providers who are not treating our sisters well, and we are going to be using our consumer power to share publicly so that we can inform our community. I mean, we often say with so many things with Black women, like, we're going to have to save ourselves. And this is a tool to help us save ourselves. Now, on the hospital side, many of them have done anti-bias trainings, right? Which is a great first start. But this idea that you can undo racism in a 90-minute training, I don't care if it's all day, it's not happening. And on top of that, nobody ever checks back in to see if this training has actually improved the patient experience for those people it's supposed to be helping, right? So nobody's ever checked back in with us and be like, hey, did that anti-bias training work out for you? No. So we created Irth really as well as an accountability and tracking mechanism. If you're a hospital, if you're a doctor, if you're doing the anti-bias, anti-racist work, great. Then your Irth review should be on point. We want to see 4 and 5 stars. We want to see the qualitative responses that support that. And if not, then there's still work to do. And so on the back end, we turn these qualitative reviews into quantitative data, so that now we can identify hospitals who, one, are getting good reviews and be like, hey, Black people, Black and brown folks really love this hospital. They consistently review it well. What's going on there? Like, what have they done? And how can that be replicated in other places? And on the other side, when there's a pattern of poor reviews, let's step in and try to help this situation. The other thing about this accountability, Mariella, that drives me up a wall is that right now, in addition to the anti-bias trainings, many hospitals and states have mandated maternal mortality review boards, which first of all, are very important, but they go in after somebody has died to analyze and figure out what went wrong, right? And that bothers me deeply, that someone has to die for you to see what's going on. At Irth, we say, we help hospitals learn from the living, right? You can capture and learn from our lived experience to prevent another Black person from dying. Like, that's my goal. Not that we wait till somebody dies and then we try to figure out what went wrong. We have the tools, and Irth is one of them, to actually figure out what's going on, look for those patterns, look for those things that we know lead to adverse events and prevent it from happening. So that's the work that we're doing. providing this consumer tool on the front end so we can be transparent, we can inform our community, but on the back end, we get to work to identify patterns, find well-reviewed hospitals, find those who are not, and then try to turn that into helpful information so they can improve.
Beautiful work across the board, so necessary. The power of storytelling is key, right? And I often speak about just the B side of history, the side that we don't get when we go, to the way that our institutions are set up. We learn one side. We usually learn from the people who wrote the history books, I say, right? Unless we go
where the library. With the
exactly.
library, right?
Exactly. Or I went to Spelman College for a year, and I was like, every person in the United States should be required to take an African diaspora in the world class that we have at Spelman College. You have to take it in order to graduate. There were so many emotions, like grown-ass women learning all of these things for the first time. That why try to avoid the history and the knowledge and the stories that are a part of our culture, and try to bamboozle us to make us think that we can fit into the status quo, but we can't. Anyway, that's a tangent. What I really am interested in knowing.
Go on a tangent. I'm a proud Spelman mom, so I'm with you in all of that.
There you go. Okay. Yes, HBCUs. Let's make it a requirement. I just love that you're really pushing the accountability through community, essentially. So my question is, when you, because I know that you probably do, receive pushback from some of these institutions, how do you handle that pushback?
Yeah, Maria, the pushback is real, and it's really been amazing. I mean, of course I expected it, but the depth of it is deeply concerning, because first of all, hospitals have been centered for far too long in this process. First of all, they can't believe that we created something without them, and that doctors and hospitals are not allowed to comment and respond in Irth. No, you're not allowed there. And the fact that we had the audacity to create something literally by Black and brown people for Black and brown people without them is something they really struggle with. And it's been shocking to me the ways that these power dynamics, because we know racism is about power, right? That is an element of racism that is really about power. And the power the medical system has held over Black and brown folks and our bodies is still very much a dynamic at play. And that is also what we seek to disrupt by using technology to disrupt that power dynamic. And that scares the crap out of them. It scares the crap out of them. So there are a couple of ways that I approach this, usually always with a smile, is that, this is happening, right? We've seen technology used to disrupt many industries, to deal with inequities, to deal with imbalances. This is happening. It is coming. And we invite them in an opportunity to be a part of it, or wait until it hits you the other way. I don't know how to say that nicely. And then, the other part for me is them understanding that we have to listen to Black people. So many times hospitals and doctors are like, but what if somebody's upset? And what if someone just has a debate? Okay, I remind them, listen, I use Yelp all the time. And sometimes I look at a review and I say, you know what, this person's being pretty harsh. That person, this didn't deserve it too, or whatever. But I get to make that judgment. No one takes that power away from me. So with Irth, we trust people of color to look at a number of reviews and make their own judgment. And this idea that we believe Black people is deeply troubling to them. And we know this is at the center of why we have been treated so badly and so poorly within the medical system. And so it's a deeply rooted issue. We get lots of pushback. We get lots of folks who do not want to work with us. And so that's why we're taking our movement to the people, right? Like, yes, we want you to work with us, but ultimately, this is a tool that we need Black and brown folks to support, to get behind, to leave reviews, to come in, search, help us build the database, so that we can actually disrupt this power dynamic, which continues to operate.
So you can answer this next question as, yes or no, or you can go in as deep as you want, because you are not the first Black woman who has created an app that is specific for the Black community. And just because I've heard of other, folks who have been on this journey who got a lot of pushback just from publishing the app, were you experiencing any pushback by creating this app and publishing it for the public to have access to?
Yes, because white women sometimes have a problem when they're not being centered and something is not for them. And so, certainly we know that there is value in white women using the app, because the data will help us see disparities, discrepancies. Maybe this place just sucks for everybody, and that needs to be illuminated too. But what we've said is that right now we are prioritizing Black and brown folks because our first goal is to create community. There will be a time down the line when we invite white women in to use the app, because I do think Irth is a powerful tool for allyship, right? And that ultimately white women should also say, if this provider is not treating Black and brown folks well, I don't want to go there either. So in my vision, right, white women are invited in to use the app, and they will also go to their provider and say, hey, I've checked out your Irth reviews and they're not so great. So-and-so, like, I need you to do better. I'm leaving. I'm making my decision. I'm standing as an ally for Black and brown folks. So that is very much part of the vision. But right now, Black people and brown folks deserve a safe space, and that's their own. And that's been really important. I've done a number of IG Lives. We try to talk about this, but sometimes people are so used to being centered in all the processes that when we create something that is for ourselves, even if we're saying it's for us right now, and we'll let you know when it's for you, it's problematic. But I don't take that on as my problem. I view that as that's a you problem, and I just stay focused on the work that I'm doing. But it is a thing, and I hope that more people are understanding that, when we create something for us, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. So, but that is our right. To do that, and we practice that right to create for our community, as they have been creating primarily for their audiences from for hundreds of years. And so it is a thing. I try not to give it too much attention.
Beautiful. Lots to learn from you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so this next question that I'm interested in hearing your response to, that was submitted previously to this conversation, reads, you had mentioned in an article that hospitals are almost always driven by two things: profits and reputation. How do you play with these factors to your advantage and get hospitals to be a part of Irth's vision?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we do use to our advantage, because we know that hospitals are businesses, right? And it's one thing to say to them, hey, you should do this because it's right and it's the right thing to do. We've been saying that and it's not working, so now we need to understand that in our country, hospitals are a profit-driven business, and our healthcare system is a commercialized system. So how do we actually use that to our advantage? Because there are so many things about that to our disadvantage. How do we actually understand that dynamic? Remember, I was a business journalist. I covered Wall Street. So my mind thinks that way by training. And so I had brought that to bear in how I think about how we use Irth. So let's talk about profits. What we do know is that mothers, particularly Black women, are the financial decision makers in their homes. And mothers have been proven to be those healthcare decision makers as well. So now hospitals have a pivotal moment, right, where there's a great opportunity to build affinity for their brand in a good way that will carry with them. Because trust me, if a mother has a negative experience with you, she's not going back to take her baby. She's not telling her man or her husband to go there. She's not telling her granny to go there. She's not telling her aunties and cousins to go there. So we understand that dynamic, and we invite them into a unique opportunity to make sure that there's a good experience at this most pivotal point in a woman's life, which will carry them throughout their other healthcare decision-making points throughout their own life continuum, and for their babies and for their families. And so we think about that. And then when it comes to reputation, we know the power of reviews. I think some studies are showing that 90% of people are using online reviews for their own physician decision-making. But yet we don't have a tool, particularly as Black women and mothers, to see how people like us rated of a system. That's a problem. And so by using our consumer power, we can, amplify the reputational risk of treating Black and brown folks poorly, and not just the one-time risk of a highly sensationalized newspaper article, but the long-term risk of showing that that's a pattern. right? Because even if it happens once, trust me, they will try to explain it away. But if there's a pattern in Irth, now we get to also show that this is bigger than this. And they have a huge reputational risk for not having positive reviews in Irth. Lots of great work coming out of Harvard Business School, with many economists are projecting that reviews will become as powerful as regulation in certain industries. And so this is a factor and a phenomenon in our world that should not be ignored.
People over profit.
Exactly.
Right? Do we need to tattoo that on our foreheads? So we just look up and we wake up and then we look in the mirror and we remember. And I oftentimes, folks, when I have to interview people and, we talk, on the big scale of productivity and, profitability, I love to remind everyone that we have to reflect on emotional intelligence. It's okay to have those be goals. We want the data, we want to be able to take a vacation and provide for our families, but can we practice empathy while we do that? Can we be more self-aware when we do that? Can we be more socially aware when you do that? So I love that you're bringing this back to, the power of the dollar as consumers. Where are we putting our energy? Where are we putting our money? So thank you so much for highlighting that. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the fun bits of, joining the app. So what can a user experience when they first download the app, and can you just walk us through that onboarding process and what they can expect?
Yeah, so when you download the app, you'll see our welcome screens, which are very reflective and inclusive. We try to make sure that our pictures reflect who we are as a community, including non-binary folks. And so that was really important to our designers. And then you'll be asked to create an account. And so we ask everyone to create an account. To be quite honest, it is probably not something that you're used to encountering with an app, but we had such a terrible time with racist attacks on our platforms when we were pre-launch. I mean, it was really something. And so for the safety of our community, you might find a little bit more, as they say, resistance in our app. But I assure you that is to keep you safe and to make sure that our app is safe in a way that other people have not taken as seriously as we do. And then after you create an account, you can do two things. You can leave a review or search for a review. If you're going to leave a review, it's going to ask, who are you? Are you the birthing person? Are you the partner? Are you the doula? Are you a doula? Are you a midwife? And then what type of review are you going to leave? A prenatal, a birth experience, a pediatric appointment, etc. So, and then once you go through that, you'll get busy with the questions and guide you through that process. We ask questions because remember, and I let people know that we are Yelp-like, but it is not just a free-form commenting space, because we are determined to turn this into useful data that can change systems, right? And so if you feel like it's a lot of questions, I get it. But please know that it's our way that we can really make that experience matter on the other side. And I don't mean matter to me, but unfortunately to put it in a format that can be helpful and useful and instructive to the hospitals and the providers that we want to help. And then on the other side, if you go to search, you would have to enter whether you're going to search for a doctor or hospital. You can also just search a city, state, or zip code, and then you could search and see if we have any reviews for your area. Right now, we have reviews in 48 states, but we do have some protections such that people, if you don't see a review, it could be that we don't have enough to display to keep people safe, particularly if we have reviews from some non-binary folks whose identity, depending on where they live, could be, could be identified based on on some information. So we try to think through that and make sure that we keep our community safe in that regard as well.
I really appreciate you taking your time to walk us through why, you, for example, need to start a profile or an account. It's in order to, not allow the backlash and the haters essentially to censor and just to throw that hate at the community. I really think that it's probably more necessary to speak like that when we have the intention to, set our clear boundaries so that we can nurture the nucleus and not just allow chaos to enter and happen, right? So exactly. I really appreciate you basically being the caretaker of that community space. I often like to remind us that the digital space is being colonized. There are not enough diverse thinkers, diverse people creating technology, which in in essence, you have digital colonization happening. So apps like yours are allowing these other safe spaces to open up, and I think that different rules have to be acquired in order to not allow some of the reckless things that we see on Instagram and Facebook and the big tech folks these days. So I appreciate the integrity there. I would love to hear something that you've seen throughout this pandemic just come to your awareness as you are being the caretaker of this app, and specifically as you're advocating for birthing people and for children.
Well, so many things, first of all, and I have to say I was not shocked, but shocked by the ways that Earth was being attacked. It's like, to your point earlier, if we're creating something for us, boy, oh boy, are they scared of it. And that was also affirming, because if these people went out of their way to find our little events and our little, social platforms to spew hate, I'm like, wow, this is, first of all, I know that this is necessary and needed, because when they're scared, you're on the right track, as far as I'm concerned, but also that I need to take care. And one of the things that I was really particularly attentive to during the pandemic was that my team was all people of color, like 98% Black. And, here I am with deadlines, with funders, and building a product that is an anti-racist tool. But my team was being impacted by the twin pandemics, right? Our communities were being hardest hit by COVID. Everyone on my team knew someone or had someone in their family who had a scare or something. And also, obviously, as we watch our brothers being killed and the police brutality and then the race riots, I mean, it was a lot. And for me, what I learned mostly as a leader was how to show compassion and empathy and humanity to my Black and to my team of people of color. And that was one of the most important things. I wrote a piece about it for LinkedIn because it was really an important thing around leadership, because so many times, even right now, it's like, oh, hire Black people, hire Black people. Well, don't hire Black people to bring it into oppressive spaces, please. Don't do that. Like, if we're going to be there, how do we do that? And I wanted to be a demonstration as a Black woman-led nonprofit, as a person leading a people of color team, to say, I need to honor myself, because I'm also raising a Black boy, so I was experiencing my own trauma, but to also acknowledge my team. So I just stopped work. It was like, we are not doing business as usual through this, right? So we first took a 2-week break, and I just really tried to make sure that everybody had the restorative practices. How can I pay for your election, your voting time? How can I, like, all the things. And I think that was one of the most important things that I learned. And for me to be honest with my team, like, obviously I'm in a leadership role, but I had to say to them that I was traumatized too. I was in a meeting, my son, who's an athlete, wanted to go for a run. I forgot to check if he had his ID. If I reminded him not to have his hoodie up, I didn't check where he was running. I was in a panic in the middle of a presentation, right? And it was just crazy. So I'm like, first of all, let me tell you what I'm going through. And let's all be humans and show each other grace and compassion as we get through this process. And so I think what it became was really like a therapy. I felt, even for me, Earth became my coping mechanism and my therapy, because one, it was the one meeting that I knew for sure was going to be all full of people who looked like me and understood. And I think it was that for my team. So we started our meetings with real talk, and not just BS icebreakers. So that was an important thing that was incredibly my learning during the pandemic, for sure.
Beautifully said, and such a beautiful way to round out this conversation. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for taking time to drop knowledge with us today. And I look forward to staying connected. Let's pass the mic now back to Meg, because I know we've got some more awesome conversations coming up. And thank you so much again, Kimberly, for your inspiration.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to both of you women. That was absolutely amazing. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us here today and feel comfortable being so open with us. It's absolutely invaluable. So thank you to you both.